I don't care what people think of me if I'm following the facts to try and figure out what happened and try and solve the problem. But you have already shown you don't know the case.
Yeah, that's total horse crap. Go ahead, defend the racist guys who murdered him. Go ahead.
How about I just describe what happened? Why did the guy who filmed it go to prison?
I think that what they stated in that case was that he helped to chase the guy down. It wasn't the filming that was the issue. It was that he helped to corner the guy in his car as well, and that's why he was an accomplice.
So he didn't coordinate with him anyway. He saw the McMichaels chase after him, and so he said, I got to film this. He then gave the footage out, which showed what happened and resulted in the criminal charges, but they locked him up too.
But he was an accomplice, brother. So I read the stories about how he worked with those guys. He agreed with those guys. So if he was just a random neighbor that shot it out of his window, why would he go to prison? Of course he shouldn't go to prison.
But that's the point. He didn't coordinate with him in any way.
So yet now you're nitpicking the prosecution in that particular case about the guy who shot the video. But why are you like going out of your way to defend the most racist murderers in America?
All right, folks, hope everyone had a great weekend. So on Friday, Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, or perhaps I should correct myself there, 2024 presidential candidate Cenk Uygur, I'm still laughing about that to this day, went on Tim Pool's show. And to be honest with you, a lot of it was kind of lame and not worth watching. But there is one moment here I want to highlight, especially considering now Cenk is a guy who claims he wants to be president, because they discuss a lot of the different incidents that we remember from the 2020 to 2021 era. January 6th, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, all this different stuff. And Cenk basically admits that he doesn't care about the actual facts of these cases. He doesn't care who's innocent or guilty or of what crimes. Long story short, if you are in any way involved in an incident that becomes left-wing propaganda by proxy, Cenk makes it pretty clear. For that reason alone, he just wants you in jail. And that shouldn't be surprising, because a couple months ago when we reacted to him talking about Kyle Rittenhouse, he basically said the same thing. And again, I think this is very important, because this basically insinuates that if Cenk Uygur is president, again, it doesn't matter if you're innocent or guilty of whatever. If you get caught up in a media firestorm, whether you're right or wrong, Cenk will immediately want to see you locked up as the president, simply because you are the target of a media firestorm. And so we're going to react to this clip. It gets pretty heated here today. But first, before we get into today's reaction, I need to tell you about our sponsors today at Noble Gold. Folks, with everything that's been going on in the world recently, it has never been a better time to invest in financial security with gold, silver, and your precious metals. And that may sound confusing or intimidating. That may sound completely unfamiliar, but don't worry, folks. The team at Noble Gold makes it easy. And if you visit the link at thevincedao.com or dial them at 877-646-5347, they will, for free, walk you through all of the best ways, whether that's big or small, to invest in precious metals. So don't wait. Be sure to give them a call at 877-646-5347 or visit the link at vincedaogold.com. Check them out. Again, folks, they are great supporters of this channel. So if you would like to help support our channel, you can do so by dialing or visiting our friends over at Noble Gold. So be sure to do so. Don't wait. Invest in your financial security. All right, with that said, let's get into this clip. Here's Cenk Uygur with Tim Pool. Here you go, folks.
Do you know how many people died in the George Floyd riots?
I don't.
There's different estimates. The original estimates was around 34 to 36. I think it's been amended now based on people making arguments about what constitutes a death during the riot versus someone died while the riot was happening. But it's between like 20 and 30. So when you have nation...
So for context here, they're talking about January 6th and left-wing versus right-wing terrorism. What's the scale? What's the bigger problem? And then this is where it goes.
Wide mass protests over what I would say is arguably serious disinformation coming out of what happened with George Floyd. People fear terrorism.
It's not disinformation, brother. I mean, we all saw it.
Well, no, we need to clarify what I mean by disinformation. Okay, I'm not saying... So obviously the dude, Chauvin, put his knee on the guy's neck, and this general area is like covering a large portion of his back. But the disinformation comes around the circumstances that resulted in that, the moral questions of what should be done, how it should be done, and the fact that what did happen doesn't warrant 30 plus more deaths and mass rioting across the country, which destroys more lives and burns down innocent people's buildings and homes.
So, look, first of all, Chauvin killed George Floyd. He did it in a brutal way. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about that at all.
Have you read the coroner's report?
Yeah. And what happens to him is that sometimes people die because they can't breathe because you cut off the flow of oxygen. And sometimes they die and they say they can't breathe. It's because they have a heart condition or some other condition. And when you compress long enough, they literally have the feeling that they can't breathe and then they die.
I don't disagree. My point more so is, are you familiar with the circumstances before George Floyd's death? Like what led to him being apprehended in the first place?
I think
well, here's what I'll say is that's still an open question, right? Because the coroner's report and other things suggested that what George Floyd really died of was fentanyl overdose. He had lethal amounts in his system. The autopsy that came, I believe it was a week or so after, amidst all of the social and political pressure, which, again, you know, you remember how it was in the country at the time. I think there's still open questions. That autopsy concludes, no, it was 100% because of the knee on the neck. No questions asked. Now, why is that debate relevant? It's not relevant because anyone is saying that it was smart or the right move or morally correct for Derek Chauvin to do what he did to George Floyd. But we're talking about what many people claimed was murder, right? The guy is in jail right now, in prison right now for murder. Right. So with that said, it is a relevant question of whether or not the knee on the neck is actually what killed George Floyd, or was it the fentanyl overdose? Maybe a mixture of both. But I think, as you'll see, Cenk makes it pretty clear he doesn't really care. And none of these leftists really care. OK, because to them, it's like, oh, we saw this video. It outraged the country. So throw the guy in jail. And it's the same way with January 6th, and it's the same way with Ahmaud Arbery, which they talk about here. And I think it reveals a lot about how they feel and what they would do to you if you were in any type of situation. Doesn't matter if you're guilty or innocent, right? No one's defending what Derek Chauvin did. Was that the right police maneuver? I don't know. But this is what's being debated.
He had like a fake $20 bill for which he was apparently, then you shouldn't murder people over $20. But he was
behind the wheel of a car chewing on a speedball, which is methamphetamine and fentanyl.
Okay, but Tim, what effing difference does it make?
The question is, should the police, and I'm not telling you what you should believe, I'm asking you genuinely, should the police remove a driver from a vehicle who is behind the wheel, who is chewing on a speedball? But did you watch the full body camera footage from start to finish of how it all went down?
I believe I did in that case.
It's a moral dilemma. And I think
it's not at all a moral dilemma. It's not.
It absolutely is.
So Tim, you could drag him out of the car. You can't sit on his neck for 9 minutes, brother. That's obvious.
I agree. I completely agree.
Don't fight that. That's terrible. It's murder.
I'm not saying that specific incident is the moral dilemma. I'm saying the entirety of the circumstance brings us to a bunch of serious questions that must be answered that have not been.
No.
Such as, is the knee on the neck really what killed him? And when you look through that whole trial, and now more evidence has come out from the coroner's report and all that stuff that is showing, like, we never even had this discussion. That's the biggest thing I think we're saying is not, you know, oh, what he did was the right move or whatever. It's more so, again, is that the reason he died? Because if you're going to put him in jail for, was it second degree manslaughter, murder, whatever, all these different charges, it's a relevant question whether that's actually the reason why he died. Context here is relevant. We burned down the country, definitely not having the answer to this question. I would argue even went to the trial still not really knowing. And Cenk is just straight up saying, I don't care. Now, again, why is that relevant? It's relevant because this is how he treats all of these incidents. You heard the way he talked about Kyle Rittenhouse. You heard about the way he's about to talk about Ahmaud Arbery. Cenk Uygur would throw you in jail simply because there's a video that makes you look bad without knowing the context. I think that's the greater point here we need to highlight.
Oh, I think it's look, I'll tell you, Tim, to the average guy, it sounds like you're excusing it. I know you're saying you're not because you're putting in the caveat that the 9 minutes was wrong and it was murder, but like, don't get into it because if you want to talk about nuance, there's 1,000 cop videos where they drag him out of the car and you could say, oh, no, that's totally okay. That guy's on speed. He was speedy, like he was causing a significant issue where people might have gotten hurt and the cops had to subdue him. So make the argument in that case. If you make it about George Floyd, everybody's going to think you're, defending this racist guy who murdered that guy.
I don't care what people think about me if I'm trying to find a solution so this doesn't happen again. And so if the issue is guy uses counterfeit $20 bill, resulting in a police call. Police find him behind the wheel of an SUV chewing on hard drugs. He's removed from the vehicle. He sat down. Eventually, they move to arrest him. George Floyd becomes combative, says, take me out of the car, take me out of the car. I can't breathe. Put me on the ground, put me on the ground, put me on the ground. Chauvin arrives after this, kneels on his neck. Those are the circumstances of what happened. Crowd forms. They're mad at it. George Floyd dies. 9 minutes. The questions are, where was the point at which this should have stopped? Should it have just?
Why is that not super easy? The point it should have stopped is he should never put his knee on the guy's neck.
They have training for it, and so then.
Well, that's the training is wrong.
Exactly, and then the answer becomes we dissect.
But then that's another question. Okay, you think the training is wrong? Fair enough. But if the cop was just doing what his training is, and then you're going to throw him in jail for however long, it's a long time, right? Isn't that relevant? Hey, he was doing what the police department trained him. But again, right? Cenk Uygur doesn't care.
The problem is when you outright dismiss it and say you're racist, if you question it, you're siding with the racist guy. If people want to say that, that's fine. I don't care. It doesn't solve the problem.
But Tim, you're purposely picking the worst case to talk about because it gets like my honest opinion. Sorry, but it's because you know that it's going to get more attention if you say it in the context of George Floyd.
Let's talk about Ahmaud Arbery.
Okay.
I mean, these are the high profile stories.
Ahmaud Arbery, the guy who got shot jogging in the neighborhood, is.
I think jogging is a representation of your misinformation or your ignorance of the issue.
Tim, this is why people think you're a radical right winger.
That's fine, but if you don't know, why would you make the argument?
So what do you mean I don't know? I know the case. The guy, the two redneck racist sons of bitches who murdered him said that he was in the house that was being built, which, by the way, apparently tons of people had come by to see, hey, how's the construction going? Right. So do they know that he was one of the how's the construction going? Well, they don't know anything because he didn't steal anything.
But you're wrong.
So, but they see a black guy at a construction site and they're like, let's chase that son of a bitch down and shoot him.
I don't care what people think of me if I'm following the facts to try and figure out what happened and try and solve the problem. But you have already shown you don't know the case.
Yeah, that's total horse crap. Go ahead, defend the racist guys who murdered him. Go ahead.
How about I just describe what happened?
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So a few weeks before the incident, a gun is stolen.
So, but not by that guy. But hey, the racists thought it must be the black guy.
How about the police then show a picture of him to various people in the neighborhood saying, this is our suspect of the burglaries that have been happening over the past several weeks.
Except it wasn't, right?
No,
Ahmaud Arbery didn't do anything wrong.
The suspect.
I never saw that, and that's
my point. You didn't.
Okay, so I don't believe you. B, I never saw it. C, there's.
You see the problem of
no. You
didn't follow the case. Okay,
right. And that's exactly the point. He doesn't actually follow the case. Cenk Uygur just wants mob justice. Okay, if you're involved in one of these incidents, God forbid, let's hope no one is. Whether you're guilty or not, whether you actually did something wrong or not, it doesn't matter. If Sean King is mad, if protesters are mad, straight to jail, buddy. That's Cenk Uygur's moral philosophy, okay? Which should intimidate any conservative in this country. And as much as he talks about, oh, I'm not like the normal liberals, I'm the anti-establishment guy. And sometimes since he's running for president, I've heard him saying, liberals and conservatives should come together over bipartisan issues in terms of fighting the establishment. No, you can't trust this guy. Because this guy would have you thrown in jail. Regardless of the facts, which is, again, my point. My point's not to defend this person or that person. It's to highlight a greater issue, which is that Cenk Uygur wants you thrown in jail if the mob is upset. The facts don't matter. The details don't matter. I saw a video. People on the internet are upset. People are protesting. Go to jail.
Making a moralistic statement on what happened.
So let's take your bullshit facts, so-called facts. Let's accept them as true, okay? So they show me a picture. Please come by my house to show me a picture of a black guy, and they say this might be a suspect in a robbery. Yep. If I see him, I'm not going to chase him down with a gun because that means that there's a high chance that we're going to get into a conflict and someone's going to die. What? That's a lunatic thing to do.
Why did the guy who filmed it go to jail?
Then the second thing I'm not going to do is...
So I agree that's probably not the best thing to do. But at the same time, again, this is a matter of the law. Citizen's arrest, at least at the time, I don't know if they've changed it, is legal in Georgia. But that doesn't matter because we saw a video, right? Again, the point is not to defend anyone's actions. It's to treat people fairly and equally under the law. Cenk clearly cares, clearly shows he doesn't care about that.
Is look at any black guy in the neighborhood and go, I bet that's him, man. Let's go grab our shotguns.
But I don't disagree.
Okay.
Right.
Why did the guy who filmed it go to prison?
Good question.
I think that what they stated in that case was that he helped to chase the guy down. It wasn't the filming that was the issue. It was that he helped to corner the guy in his car as well. And that's why he was an accomplice.
So he didn't coordinate with him anyway. He saw the McMichaels chase after him. And so he said, I got to film this. He then gave the footage out, which showed what happened and resulted in the criminal charges, but they locked him up too.
If yeah, but he was an accomplice, brother. So I read the stories about how he worked with those guys. He agreed with those guys. So if he was just a random neighbor that shot it out of his window, why would he go to prison? Of course he shouldn't go to prison.
But that's the point. He didn't coordinate with him in any way.
So yet now you're nitpicking the prosecution in that particular case about the guy who shot the video. But why are you like going out of your way to defend the most racist murderers in America? Then you shouldn't wonder why people think you're an extreme right winger, Tim. I'm keeping it real with you.
I don't know who
It's not nitpicking. That's actually a very serious question. Why did the guy who filmed the Ahmaud Arbery thing, who didn't shoot them, according to Tim, didn't even conspire with them to do any of that, why is he in jail? Well, the answer is very simple. If you'll remember, especially the social environment of the time, he's in jail because of mob justice, because he pissed off the very violent and angry mob army of Black Lives Matter protesters in the country at a time where the country was very divided and violent and all that stuff. No questions asked, a huge leap in justice here. What is, according to Tim Pool, an innocent guy is now in jail. But again, what does Cenk Uygur call that? He doesn't rightly point out, wow, that is an innocent man whose life just got ruined, according to what you're saying, and he's in jail now, and this is terrible, and he needs justice. No, he calls it nitpicking. Oh, you're just nitpicking the details. Well, we should all surely hope that we're never in any type of incident of any kind, right, as conservatives, when Cenk Uygur is the president. Because if you're even in the presence of something that happens that you have nothing to do with, it's just nitpicking, according to Cenk Uygur, to not have you thrown in jail. That's very alarming, in my opinion. And I think it highlights a lot of Cenk Uygur's moral philosophy, which is, again, the details don't matter. The actual facts don't matter. Let's just kind of follow the mob and kind of just do what they want. And that would be him as president, right? He claims that he's anti-establishment. He's going to fight against the corporate interests. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But the alternative apparently is to hand total control to the mob and just scream and agree with whatever they want to do. That's an equally dangerous precedent for the country as the current corporatist rule, or whatever he wants to say that he talks about. So anyways, folks, just wanted to highlight that really quickly. You can watch the full Tim Pool, Cenk Uygur interview if you want. I mean, there's some of it that was entertaining, but to tell you the truth, there's just not a lot of great moments to react to, but I did want to do one video on it, so there you go. With that said, folks, be sure to leave a like on the video right now. Subscribe if you are new. Let me know what you think of Cenk Uygur's 2024 presidential run. Be sure to check out our friends at Noble Gold, VinceDaoGold.com. And until next time, Alpha moves only. God bless. Have a very good day, and peace.